Hey there, I'm Lily Corbley Johnson. Happy Financial Literacy Month. It is April 1st, and this entire month is about financial literacy. I decided to make this video on YouTube because there's really important information that so many people don't know. Information I didn't know either until a couple years ago. I know COVID-19 is around and more people are frighteningly aware of how their finances are, of how scared they are, and it seems like everybody's in the same boat. Well, guess what? We've all, in a way, been in the same boat since way before COVID-19. It's just more obvious now since everything is being shut down and people are not able to work in so many places. But when all this is done with, and we're out of our social isolation time, we'll be going back to some of the same habits we've had before. I happen to coach entrepreneurs. I was so lucky I was finally able, with my husband Norm, to leave my full-time job, as did he, New Year's of last year, or shall we say New Year's Eve. And it has dawned on me after these past couple years how much misinformation there is in the world. And my goal is to let people know what the heck is happening. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an accountant. And it's not like I'm completely debt-free. But I know a lot. I know a lot of myths that people really need to know about because it's making people sick, it's making people competitive, it's making people unhappy. There's maybe a couple thousand people in the same financial literacy program that Norm and I were in. And because of the participation in the program, we know about these myths. Now, I'm going to be talking about certain aspects of this fabulous book called Financial Fitness Program, or Financial Fitness, written by entrepreneurs, excuse me, to encourage people who ought to be at least partially entrepreneurial, which is where part of the secret lies in financial fitness. I read the book maybe almost 6 years ago with my husband. It took me a long time to even touch it. I thought, I guess I'm pretty fit. Ha! It was an eye-opener. Now, if you get nothing else out of these next 4 Wednesdays worth of mini webinars, at least know that you're not alone, know that there is hope, and just know some of these misconceptions. This book talks about how to defend what you make, how to earn more, and the rules of the game. Because imagine if you were in a soccer game, you didn't know the rules, and you started picking up the ball with your hands, you might get smacked by somebody. Well, you know what I mean. So if you're not following the rules, you're not going to do so well. You got to know how to play around them. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your money. I'm here to tell you things I have learned because apparently a lot of people don't know these things. Habits. A lot of habits and new skills. So if you listen to nothing else other than this webinar today, this mini webinar that might be no more than 15 minutes, know that, for example, things are not the way they look. Even if somebody earns a lot, or you think they earn a lot, financial advisors, realtors, physicians, classic roles that people assume that people make a lot. Even if they do, you know what? It doesn't matter. One thing I've learned from this book, Financial Fitness, is it's not how much you earn, it's how much you keep. And what astounds me is that how incredibly in debt a lot of the people in those professions are, and the amount of energy expended to keep up the appearances. Because maybe they don't know that other people are doing just as badly as they are. The sad thing is, in many cases, it's not like they're trying to be swimming in debt, they just didn't know better. We all do that as well for ourselves as we can. Give yourselves a break. People learn certain mindsets and habits that get them stuck. And with all of the social media, we have competition. If there's one thing I've learned as a professional development person who helps business owners or entrepreneurs to escape their day jobs is that a lot of it has to do with people skills, and the bottom line is people need to feel important. It's the most important human need that people are trying to cover. Unbelievable what lengths people go to feel important, whether it's the feeling needed, it is looking important, what kind of car you're driving, what kind of house you live in, who you're helping. Unbelievable how it filters, it just infiltrates everything else you do. So the next time you're envious of somebody who has an amazing seeming life because, oh, he or she's a physician, a doctor, or wow, they're an attorney, they must be raking it in. In many cases, no. And even the ones who are paid to help us with our finances, many of them are swimming in debt. It's not their fault. They were just taught certain concepts and no one taught them the rest of it. I'm so grateful we got the financial literacy education we did. So that's the main thing you want to be taking away, other than the skills, is stop envying other people because they're not doing so great necessarily, or they're working their butts off to maintain a certain lifestyle or just to do somewhat well. And the whole myth that your day job will protect you, please. I worked in the government for 15 years in human services, in the welfare department. I can tell you that despite security, it's not like that's all you need to do well. Now, let me ask you. Now, are you willing to write down some questions to come back next Wednesday, 6:45 p.m. Central Time, so that I can ask you some things? I do coach people, and it might help you this month to be answering some of these questions on your own, or if you're willing to share some of your thoughts with me, I'd love to hear them. I look at why people buy certain things that they buy, because that impacts how much you're going to be saving if it's no longer part of your budget, right? I look at what people's lifestyles, like what they surround themselves with, in the sense of what they listen to, what they read, if they read, who are they around. All those things are going to influence how well you do for yourself and how well you can protect it, how well you can earn more, how happy you are. For example, like, do you know what an emergency fund is? Do you know what your money view is? I'm getting these points from Financial Fitness. Oh, and by the way, I happen to know about how all the different professionals are doing because I hung out with many of them for years. I'd heard their testimonials. It was really sad, but thankfully they figured out a better way to live. And there's a really cool magazine called Financial Fitness Times that had all their testimonials in it. By the way, if you do Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman or other ways of dealing with your finances, fantastic. Good for you. At least you're doing something. Now, here and there I might throw in some Spanish to capture my Spanish-speaking audience. Si necesita ayuda de mí, pregúnteme. Conozco a muchas personas profesionales que le podrán ayudar con su dinero, con ahorrar, lo que sea. The other thing I'd like you to consider. So how do you relate to money? Like your money view. Are you a slave to your money, or are you a master of it? And I do challenge you for next week to write down what is the most expensive thing you bought. Even though you're stuck at home right now, there's still online shopping and there's still delivered to your door shopping. Or food. But to think about, sorry, the book's creaking, what it is that you buy and why you buy it. It's not like you're going to live in a bubble and buy nothing. I know in my case, the way I so hate to grocery shop, I would tend to buy the first thing I see in the category I need just to get the heck out of there. Or with clothing, kind of the same. Usually my husband does the shopping and I just tell him what I'd like and then he gets it because he's a lot more price conscious and he loves shopping. I can't stand it. And think of the reasons Why you buy things for people? Is it to repair a relationship? Is it to capture their attention? Why do you loan money? Do you loan money or lend money? I remember my parents had loaned or actually paid off a debt for me. They didn't know better. But the only people that it helped was them to feel better. I had bills all over the place. It was awful. I have ADHD and my paperwork was crazy. I couldn't find the bill to pay for it. Thank God there's online payment now. Wow. But seriously, what are you spending money on? Do you have a budget? And how do you figure out what you want? Just think about those things. It's not all about penny pinching either. And I'd like to challenge you for the next 3 minutes to think about the habits you have that are costing you. For example, how many things do you eat that come out of a box? I know they're convenient. I know some of them are darn tasty because of food science figures out a way to inject as much salt and fat and sugar into it to preserve it. But if you're eating things from a box, how's it making you feel hours later? And then weeks later, what impact is it having on your health? They may be cheap things because they're mass-produced and they're not super healthy to begin with. But how's that affecting your bottom line? And why do you shop where you shop? I know in my case I'd be more tempted to shop at Byerly's because it's nicer, it seems somewhat smaller, and it's easier to navigate. But actually so is Trader Joe's, and that's way cheaper. And is it a certain time of day that you get things that you're more likely to spend more because you're exhausted, because you want to get things done and have something to say for the day? Or you get trigger happy with a mouse click and you buy everything in sight? Who knows? I know I may seem like I'm all over the place tonight, but in the event that somebody is not listening to any other aspect of my webinars for the next 3 webinar episodes, I want you to get something out of this. Now, as far as changing your habits, that's the other one thing that the Financial Fitness Programs talks about. You got to know how you relate to money, just like you got to know how you relate to people. And people skills is a huge part of this. Because when you don't relate well to people, it impacts your spending. Or maybe what kind of people do you hang out with? Do they talk about debt? Do they talk about not being able to pay for a certain trip, and yet you know that they just went to an event to see some hotshot, for example? Maybe they wanted to see and be seen. Do you get cars that you have to finance? That's another huge myth. I didn't even know till I read this book that people financed cars. Because I never had to get one myself because my parents gifted me one right out of college to get me out of the house. And then believe it or not, I actually won a car at a Rainbow Foods Bag of Dreams sweepstakes right as the other car was clunking out. So things like that do happen. But I just was astounded to know that people finance things that depreciate. I didn't even know what depreciation was until I read this book. So I'm not bashing anybody because I didn't know these things myself, and you're not taught often what depreciation is or financing or what's dangerous about it. I have a binder that actually has a tab for financing that makes it sound normal. It is assumed, like if you look at a car commercial, it is assumed that you only pay a part of the whole thing. They never mention the sticker price, the whole price. They just say $300 a month or whatever they say. Isn't that terrible? I suppose that's judgmental, but still, it's unbelievable what we've been taught to think. And did you know that about 80% of Mercedes and BMWs are leased? So next time you're all impressed with someone's Mercedes, you can think to yourself, is it theirs or did they get a car payment? I mean, maybe they earned the ability to have a nice car because of the works they've done for various companies, but they still ended up with a car payment. It's hard. It's hard when you own things, or so-called own them. You don't own if the bank takes it away if you can't make the payment. But it's hard to see what people go through to keep up appearances. I know in my case, for example, I wouldn't mind owning more clothing if I didn't hate shopping so much, because I would want to be seen in different outfits. And yet, the truth is that I wouldn't mind having like a uniform so that I wouldn't even think about that. I loved it in grade school we had uniforms, so I never had to think about it. And there was no judgment, which was fabulous. We all looked the same. So if you'll come back next week, let's talk about reading and about interpersonal skills. Because one of the ways to get ahead is to improve your leadership skills and to read. Yes, I used to hate reading, but now I love it. I absolutely love it. Reading about people's skills. Because you're dealing with people, and people help you to be successful, and vice versa. You're not dealing with droids. Those who have the best interpersonal skills have the most success, and they have the best ideas. Thanks for listening in. Feel free to send me a message, Global Entrepreneurial Tools, LLC. I do sell this book, but you can find it anywhere, maybe online or Amazon, but not mainstream, not in bookstores, because you're not supposed to know these things. Thank you for tuning in. Muchísimas gracias por escuchar y mirar. Y si tiene alguna pregunta, me puede dejar un email. You can email me at Lili, Lili, at get, the word get, dash lkj.com. That's my website. That's it for now. Thank you.